So I recently came back from holiday and a lot of you guys expressed interest in seeing what I brought with me in terms of makeup on holiday. I'm still in my pajamas, FYI, and I have my coffee here, and I thought it would be nice and cozy to have a little chat about what kind of makeup I took with me. I'm going to preface this by saying that I've traveled quite a lot over the years because I often visit my family, because I live in the Netherlands, but I am originally from Bulgaria. So pre-COVID I used to travel like 2-3 times a year to visit them, and I was basically like a chronic overpacker. I would always bring too much with me, especially eyeshadow, and end up not wearing it and just have so much like heavy shit with me. So over the years I've really tried to be a bit more minimalistic with what I brought, and I think this time I finally managed to be as minimalistic as possible in my personal standards, obviously, in bringing makeup that is going to be utilitarian, that I'm really going to have the opportunity to use, that I'm not going to just bring along with me and never actually end up using. Because what I've also discovered over the years is that when I'm not home, I don't have the same kind of comfort, I don't have the same kind of time to invest in, you know, colorful looks that are very complicated to do. Nobody got time for that. So I've learned that I need to take simpler things with me on holiday because I prefer those when I'm there. So I'm going to show you each of the items and I'm going to explain my reasoning behind it. And I'm happy to say that I used absolutely everything that I brought with me. Some of the things actually I used multiple times. I was away for a total of 14 days, out of which I did makeup for 10 because I traveled 4 days. 2 days up and down from the Netherlands to Bulgaria, and then 2 days from Sofia, where I come from, to the seaside, which is like a 6-7 hour drive. All the other days I wore makeup. So let me show you what I brought. Okay, let's start with brushes. This one was quite easy because back in 2020, or when was it, when Sonia G released the Keyaki set, I already knew that set is going to be really handy to bring with me when I travel, because it's a bunch of very compact brushes which are multitaskers. For those of you who are familiar with Sonia G brushes, you will recognize this set. This is the original Keyaki set. It's made of Keyaki, Japanese Keyaki wood. The handles are obviously significantly shorter compared to a full-size brush. For example, this is one of her full-size brushes, and it is just filled with a bunch of multitasking brushes. This is her mini base brush, which I've been using for concealer, cream bronzer, and foundation. Then I have this brush, which is really handy for blush. I used it specifically for blush. And then the 3 eye brushes, which are the Jumbo, the Mini Booster, and the Flat Definer. I used these two specifically a lot because I used this one to put something through my crease. Then I use my fingers a lot to apply metallic eyeshadows. And this one I would use for like my inner corner and some lower lash line work. And the Jumbo is one of my favorites for doing one and done eyeshadow looks. I did want to bring an extra with me for highlighting, because while this brush is, you can use this brush for highlighting, I don't find it to be my personal favorite, and I thought my favorite, which is this beautiful fan brush that I have by N Brush from Maxineshka, is going to be light and small enough for me to bring along. And I also don't particularly like this brush for doing like my powder, finishing powder touches. So I did bring also my Sonia G Smooth Buffer because I thought it might be handy to have. And you know, the overall amount and volume of these brushes wasn't really that much, and it fit perfectly in this bag. So I was more than happy to have all of these. I've used them, some of them I have washed multiple times. So I was very happy with my choices in terms of brushes, like tools. I have the habit of packing my makeup further in these sort of like Ziploc bags, because I find that when things are a bit more, you know, orderly put together, they tend to take up much less space and it's easier to find them. So let's start with this one, because this is where I would usually start with. I took, of course, my MAC Prep and Prime 24 eyeshadow base. This is my only like eyeshadow base primer that I ever used, so there wasn't really much of a choice there. I also took my L'Oreal Plump and Set Brow Artist Plumper. This is basically like a little mascara for your brows with this teeny tiny spoolie. Honestly, because I have thicker brows and I don't really spend much time doing something with them, this is perfect. I just kind of like brush them up and I'm good to go. For concealer, I did bring with me my Bendy Avocado concealer from First Aid Beauty. This concealer has been unfortunately discontinued. It's one of my favorites because it's a very lightweight, very hydrating concealer that doesn't dry out my under eyes, because I didn't bring any sort of like liquid luminizer with me to apply underneath my eyes, so I really needed something that is not going to look crappy and dry. However, I did bring the shade 03 with me. So this is the shade Light, and I also have the shade Fair, and I usually use the shade Fair, but I knew that I was going to spend a lot of time at the beach and I'm going to get a tan quite quickly, so I thought it might be a better match for me to already bring this one, because it works for me as it is, just not very brightening, but it would be even better for brightening once I have a little bit of a tan. So I brought this with me and I was again very happy with my choice because it was exactly the perfect match. In terms of eyeshadow primer type of things, I did bring my Pat McGrath Labs Intensifies wand, because I always bring a glitter glue with me and I wanted something that is quite practical. And honestly, when you travel, the wand is really practical, because it's basically a very compact glitter glue that you don't have to like apply with your fingers. You kind of like smudge it onto your eyelids, and I really enjoyed using it. I use it pretty much every time I did my makeup. Again, really happy with my choice and also really happy to have this. In terms of mascara, I brought my usual suspects. I have the Estee Lauder Little Black Primer and my Extra Sculpt Volume Mascara from Kiko. This is my favorite mascara ever. I used the Estee Lauder Little Black Primer only the few days that I was in Sofia, because I wore my makeup for a little bit longer and I had a little bit more time to fuck around with removing it. But when I was at the beach, I only wore makeup in the evenings for like the few hours that we had dinner and walked around. So I actually only used my mascara. I did use both and I was very happy to have both, but I didn't really use them all the time, because this is just not worth having to go through the trouble of removing if you're only going to wear your makeup out in the evening for a few hours. For foundation, I thought very deep and hard what to take with me, and in the end I decided to take a product that is relatively new to my collection. This is the Chanel Water Fresh Complexion Touch, which is, as you can see, these little balls suspended in water. And why I chose to take this with me instead of one of my other foundations is because I feel like you can control the coverage with this really well. You can put it as like an extremely sheer base, almost as a tint, or you can build it up to a little bit more coverage if that's your preference. And I knew that I'm going to prefer something that is very light coverage, especially once I get a tan, and I don't want to like bring multiple shades of foundation with me, and this served its purpose absolutely beautifully. I could apply it in a very sheer layer. It looked very natural and a little bit luminous on the skin. 10 out of 10 would recommend this if you're traveling, because of how convenient it is to be able to control the coverage. I really enjoyed this. I always bring a little sample of my MAC Fix Plus. I have it decanted here in this little bottle that I have from something that I used to have from Makeup Forever that was long ago finished, but now I decant my Fix Plus here. I always bring my Fix Plus with me because I like to set my powders with that. Speaking of powders, what else is there better to take along with you than this eeny meeny little dude from Hourglass? This is the ambient lighting powder in the shade Dim Light. You can see how teeny tiny it is. I used this a ton. I actually have the feeling that I've put a little bit of a dent in it. It is the absolute most perfect size for traveling. It takes so little space, it is so compact, and it is so light. In order to set some of the powders on my face, I also brought as a tool my little Real Techniques complexion sponge with me. I pretty much never go anywhere without this because, I don't know, it's just such a practical tool to have. Another practical tool that I don't really go anywhere without is a little lash curler. This one is like a super cheap one from Catrice. I like to curl my lashes because my lashes are a little bit straight, and in order to get like that lifting and sort of like false lash effect, I really like to have them curled. And don't you worry, I know what you're most interested in. You're most interested in what eyeshadows I brought with me. So let's now move into the eyeshadows. What did I bring for eyeshadow? I brought 2 quads with me and 3 single eyeshadows. So let's go through those real quick. I brought my Tom Ford Soleil Alone quad because My whole reasoning with eyeshadows was that I wanted to have very easy, more neutral eyeshadows that are also going to suit the outfits that I have brought with me. And this suited the purpose beautifully, perfectly, and I use it actually quite a few times, especially this eyeshadow over here, because it's such a glorious, easy to work with, easy to blend out, just no fuss, no wasted time, beautiful neutral eyeshadow. I used this one in combination with this one as an inner corner highlight a couple of times because I had a dress that had some green elements to it. I used this one once for a little bit of like a smoky eye moment. Honestly, I was very happy that I brought this with me. It was used quite a few times. And then of course I couldn't go on holiday and not bring any Pat McGrath makeup with me. Are you joking? Of course I was going to bring my Pat McGrath makeup with me. The hardest part was choosing. Actually, not so much. This quad I knew that I was going to bring already like half a year ago. I brought my Voyeuristic Vixen quad. And I was contemplating taking some of my Blitz Astral quads with me, like Iconic Illumination, one of the other quads like Interstellar Icon. But then I realized that I don't want to bring something with me that I cannot easily replace. And especially the Blitz Astral quads, I don't know that they've been like available on the regular on her website, and I was absolutely not about to risk not having Iconic Illumination in my life. So I thought, you know what, you're going to survive for 10 days without Iconic Illumination, better than a lifetime, because traveling these days is a mess. You never know when they're going to like break or lose something, and I wanted to have stuff that I can easily replace. And this is pretty much been like permanent in her collection, and I could easily replace it. So also, it's not just the fact that it was easily replaceable, it was also how utilitarian these eyeshadows were for me. Because this one is a beautiful neutral taupey shade, this is a gorgeous like pink champagne, this is relatively neutral and would have fit a bunch of my outfits, because I brought a lot of outfits that had yellow or like orange in them. And of course Rosefire Nectar, which is a beautiful, like, it's not a special shade, but it is very shiny, it is very, you know, duochromy, it is very glittery, and this shade you can use on its own, or you can apply a few flakes over top of other shades to give them a little bit of that duochromy effect. So to me this serves as a topper really, really well. All in all, I was extremely happy to have taken Voyeuristic Vixen with me, because it was just a beautiful neutral quad that you could use for so many different occasions, and it was so easy to work with. And I just think this is, I would highly recommend traveling with this quad. I think it's very useful for that. And I brought 3 singles with me. Now this eyeshadow has already gotten deep under my skin, but this travel experience was the first time that I realized I do not want to be without this eyeshadow. This is a Statuesque from Pat McGrath, which is the most, you know, perfect sculpting shade. You just put it through your crease, and then you can put anything else you want on your lids. I don't know whether you will be able to tell what a big dent I already have in this one, and I'm already plotting to purchase a backup of this eyeshadow next time I'm making an order from Pat McGrath. If I had realized this on time, I would have definitely purchased this together with Mothership 10, because I just recently purchased Mothership 10, but I'm definitely going to put this in my cart one of the next times that I make a purchase, because I do not want to be without this eyeshadow. This packaging is so compact and so light, and this eyeshadow is just so perfect and so useful. I used it maybe 8 out of the 10 days that I did my makeup. I cannot recommend Statuesque to you enough. Now another shade that I often take with me on holiday, and I'm very happy to have both in an eyeshadow palette as well as in a single, is this one from also Pat McGrath. This is the shade Pale Fire. Pale Fire is this beautiful pinky gold. It's not necessarily a very glittery shade, but it is one of those shades that has the most beautiful texture to it. So it allows for doing very easy one and done looks, and because of the little shift in it, it has a lot of dimension and it looks really interesting on the eyes. I have traveled with this eyeshadow quite a lot. It's one of my staples to take with me when I'm traveling, and I was very happy to have it. Again, you can tell what a huge dent I have in this eyeshadow. And because I knew that a bunch of my outfits are going to really fit with a nice bright orange eyeshadow, I also took my beloved Corrupt Copper with me. Corrupt Copper I also used on a couple of occasions. I used this eyeshadow as a one and done. I used it with Statuesque and then Rosefire Nectar over top, because Corrupt Copper is again one of those eyeshadows that has a beautiful texture, very easy to blend out. And what I love about this shade is, you know, when you have one and done shades and you just put an eyeshadow and it's just one color, and that doesn't create any sort of like dimension on your lids. And an eyeshadow like Corrupt Copper is exactly what you want when you're doing a one and done eyeshadow, because it has a slightly deeper, like in certain lights, almost like a slightly reddish base to it, and that beautiful copper orange sheen on it. And when you put it on your lids, even though it's only one eyeshadow, it still creates enough dimension to make it look like you have used something also in your outer corner. And that is one of the reasons I love this eyeshadow so much and why I love it as one of my favorite one and done eyeshadows. Then for my complexion, I took with me a couple of items. For bronzer, I only took one bronzer with me. To be honest with you, I originally wanted to take the Charlotte Tilbury Sunkissed, whatever it's called, the new one. Let me show you. This one with me. However, it is considerably bigger, heavier, and also, I don't know whether you can already see, mine has a little bit of a scratch here. So even though I could have put it in one of those bags to protect it, I figured it's too much of a hassle for me to bring that with me, when honestly I can probably be happy just having my Honey Glaze bronzer with me from Fenty Beauty, because it is a beautiful summer shade. It is a deep, somewhat warmer leaning brown, and it served its purpose again beautifully. So I knew that once I have a little bit of a tan, it's still going to work with that. And honestly, I like the texture. I like how blendable it is. I don't know, I had a really good time with this bronzer, and at no point during my holiday did I feel like I really missed having another bronzer with me. This was sufficient. For blush, I of course brought Paradise Glow, one of the new blush duos from Pat McGrath, because those are basically made for traveling, because you get like a 2-in-1 deal. So we have Paradise Venus here, and a shade that's very close to my favorite blush from Pat McGrath, which is Desert Orchid. I used this a ton. I was very happy to have it with me. Overall, I still don't find this blush duo release to have been the most exciting thing Pat McGrath could have done with blushes this year, but honestly this is handy to have, and especially for traveling I really appreciated having both shades together. However, I really wanted to have like a brighter, more like coral orange blush, and I thought this Suku blush, which was part of their summer collection in the shade 101, would be perfect for that. It's in their melting blush formula, which is one of my favorite things to have been released this year, and it's this beautiful, vibrant orange. I originally really wanted to take Electric Bloom with me as well, which is like the most bright coral that I have in my collection, but I took it out last minute because I thought between this and Paradise Glow I'm really covered for like most of the tones that I want to put on my face, and I really don't need to take a total of like 4 blushes with me. And finally, for highlighter, I brought my beloved Golden Nectar. This was the original highlighter that was released in this specific formula. She has recently expanded this range and added a bunch of new colors, well, a couple of new colors. And I have actually fallen head over heels with one of the new colors, which is called Golden Moonlight. Golden Moonlight is like the perfect light champagne, but I was a little afraid that once I get a tan, it may get a little too ashy on me. So I thought the safest choice would be to go with my beloved Golden Nectar, and I never for a second regretted my choice. And I only have a couple more items here to show you. So of course I brought a couple of eye pencils with me. I pretty much don't really go anywhere without this Essence Long Lasting eye pencil in the shade Hot Chocolate, which unfortunately I think has been discontinued because I could not find it the last time I was there. I always use this in my upper waterline in order to make my lashes look a little bit thicker. This Kiko double-ended eyeshadow stick, which on one end has like a beautiful champagne tone, and on the other end has the most beautiful like copper orange like warm brown tone, like a warm chocolate brown tone. It looks very flattering in my waterline, on my lower lash line, and I knew that it would fit perfectly all of the summer looks that I wanted to do. And this golden Kiko eyeshadow stick was also very handy for all of my like warm toned looks. We have another one here, which is a staple brown that I have. This is the Kiko eyeshadow stick in 04, which is, like I said, just, you know, a staple brown. I did use this with the flat definer brush to do a wing once. I used it on my waterline. And the rest in here are all lip products. So let's talk about all the lip products that went with me, because I think that was where I struggled with the most. And the reason that I struggled so much to pick what to take with me is twofold. One, I just love wearing bright lipsticks, especially with like more neutral looks. So I wanted to take a bunch of like bright colors with me. And also I recently purchased a bunch of really beautiful lipsticks from Lisa Eldridge, and I wanted to basically take all of my Lisa Eldridge lipsticks with me, which was obviously not an option. Another staple that I took with me is my MAC Prep and Prime lip primer. I also don't really go anywhere without this. I've had this already like 4 or 5 times. This is like my 4th or 5th repurchase of this product. I love this to define my lips so that like creamier formulas don't go out of my lip lines, for my lipsticks to last longer and look a little bit smoother. This is a staple. I don't go anywhere without it. And I am terrible at applying lipsticks to my lips because my lip lines are basically non-existent. So of course I took lip liner with me. I took a red because of course I took red lipsticks. I took something more of like a neutrally color, a little bit more of like a brownie color, and this more like fuchsia color. Nothing super interesting here. All of these are from affordable brands. So that brings us to the lipsticks that I brought with me. I did bring 2 Pat McGrath lipsticks with me because I wanted to have like a nice creamy, more classic red. So I brought the what are these called again? These were released with the second Bridgerton collection. These are her Satin Allure lipsticks. So this is like a very creamy, very comfortable formula. And this shade in particular, the shade Elson 5, is a beautiful, very like classic red. Another shade that I absolutely had to take with me because it is perfect for summer and it also fit a couple of my outfits really well, is also one of my favorite lipsticks from Pat McGrath, is the shade Pink Ultraness, which was part of her Luxe Trance lipstick line, which unfortunately doesn't exist anymore. So these are like a comfort matte, more creamy type formula, unlike her Matte Trance, which is more of like a satin matte. Beautiful, vibrant fuchsia color that was, I just love this lipstick so much. I could not imagine going on holiday without it. And then, like I said, I really struggled to decide which lipsticks from Lisa Eldridge to take with me. So I took a total of 5, as you can see, and I could have taken more, but I restricted myself to 5, and I put them in this little baggie, tightly packed, so that they don't like move around in my bag too much, because I also know that these lipsticks can be quite fragile. So let me show you the colors that I brought. So what I did is I took a couple of the Lucents, and I took 2 of the Insanely Saturated lips. So let me show you the Lucents that I brought with me. I brought Spirited Away. Spirited Away is one of my favorite like more neutral colors. It's like a rosewood sort of color that just fits perfectly with any look. It's a bit more toned down, so I thought for days when I want to have something like really easy and comfortable on my lips, Spirited Away would be perfect. And then I also brought the shade Atomic Cherry, because isn't this the epitome of summer holiday and summer vacation? A bright coral red. Of course I had to take this with me. And last but not least, I took one of my new Lucents with me. This is the shade Meet Me in Berlin, which is like your classic 90s brown lip, which fit a couple of my looks really well too. Like I said, I took 2 of the Insanely Saturated lips. I took the shade Rainbow Spill because I actually had outfits that would fit with this neon pink color, and I also wanted to test it out a bit more before I decide whether I really like the color or not. I'm still undecided on whether I would wear this color a lot or not, but honestly, for summer vacation, it's kind of like the perfect like bright pink. It's really beautiful. And a lipstick that without a doubt I knew I was going to take with me, and if you've watched my previous few videos, you will probably already have guessed that of course I brought Strawberry Shock with me. This gorgeous, unique watermelon kind of red. I used this one I think at least twice. and I was very happy with my choice. I've rambled now for over 30 minutes, and I was planning on making this short, sweet and concise, but there is no universe in which Mariam is short, sweet and concise. So let's leave this here. I'm very curious what you take with you on holiday, what are your considerations when you travel with makeup. Let's just exchange tips and tricks in the comment section below. As usual, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!